Stuttering can seriously affect people's ability to communicate. But new research into the brain is discovering more about why stuttering occurs and how it could be better treated to help alleviate the anguish of people with the condition.
It's like an iceberg. You see the tip of it, which is the physical struggle, the blockings, the repetitions, but then underneath all of that there's really that psychological aspect which a lot of stutterers endure, which is the anxiety about speaking, the simple task of answering the phone.
Speech is something so basically human that if you can't get it out, it really affects people in terms of how they feel about themselves and perceive themselves. It's usually defined as an involuntary interruption of the forward flow of speech, which is characterized by a number of core behaviors, typically listed as repetitions or prolongations or blocks in speech, where a person actually, they know what they want to say, they just can't get it out.
So is it something you're born with, or can it come on later in life?
Right now there is quite a bit of evidence that there is a strong genetic basis in about anywhere between 50 and 75% of the children who stutter seem to have a strong genetic component to their stuttering. So in that sense, yes, you can get it from birth. Often, however, stuttering doesn't manifest itself until the first few years during development. So often parents will say that their kids initially went through a period, year, 2 years of relatively fluent speech, as young children do, and then the stuttering starts.
I've stuttered for as long as I remember, which means from when I started to speak, probably the age of 2 or 3. For me, stuttering used to affect every aspect of my life. From primary school, I remember the terrifying situations of reading aloud in class. I remember just the simple things which a lot of us take for granted, such as ordering dinner at a restaurant, getting stuck on a word and having the waiter look at you and everyone waiting for you, ordering a bus ticket on the bus.
When you look at the brain function of people who stutter, you see overactivation in the parts of the brain that are important for motor control, such as movement and speech. It's the same in the cerebellum at the back of the head, which is important for coordination. Then there's a part of the brain called the auditory complex, which is important for the perception of speech and the understanding of sounds, and it seems to be deactivated in people who stutter.
There's a lot of external pressures which you tend to speed up when you speak to colleagues. Everyone's speaking at 100 miles an hour and you're trying to keep up, but that actually, it's a double-edged sword. You're trying to keep up, but that's going to undo your speech. Probably I speak a lot quicker and it sounds more natural, but when I get on a word that I know I'll have trouble with, like the hard T's, then the repetitions will come in, and it's kind of like a chain reaction. Once a small block or a small repetition hits, it'll unravel now.
What is very special about the research that has been done is that people that we have found physiological as well as anatomical differences that very clearly differentiate people who stutter from people who don't stutter.
Some people have suggested that training other muscles can feed back to the brain and have a positive impact, and this research suggests there might be something to that.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's sort of two types of treatment that are currently being used. One is what is typically called an avoidance reduction type of approach, where people who stutter are learned to be less tense, to be more comfortable with their stuttering, and as a result of that decrease the severity of their stuttering, but clearly sort of come to accept their stuttering and minimize the possibility that their stuttering will sort of prevent them from doing stuff in life. The other type of approach is really an approach similar to what you just described, where people who stutter are essentially taught almost a completely new way of speaking, where they said, well, one of the things that you have trouble with is you have trouble with the coordination of your speech movements. So what we're going to teach you as part of our treatment is we're going to teach you a better way of how to coordinate and control those speech movements. Is that sort of, it feeds back into the brain. We know the brain has the neuroplasticity, has the capability of acquiring new skills, and that those new speech skills become almost like the new speech and the automatic speech.
Can you give me an example of an exercise they might be given?
People will actually go, they may speak very slowly like this during the first phases of treatment, and really sort of develop that high coordinative pattern in speech, and then start to speed up.
It's kind of like going into a boxing ring with one hand side behind your back. You know, you start off at a disadvantage.
At the same time, they will control the phonation, how their voicing initiates in the, during the speech. They will develop the feeling, the kinesthetic, the muscle feeling of their speech movements, and incorporate all of that into very more natural sounding speech and fluent speech.
I think a lot of the reason why I delayed going out into the workforce and commencing a master's degree to delay that was because of my stutter. And not really having the confidence that, or the belief in myself that I could actually hold down a full-time position.